Hello, all of you gorgeous, wonderful, amazing human beings, and welcome to the Too Busy Being Worthy podcast, where we talk about conscious living and mindfulness while sharing our active journeys in creating a safe emotional home deep within our beautiful spirits, and doing so living in our most authentic expressions. Now, if you happen to be listening to this or watching this, please just take a moment and stop. And let's embrace each other.
Love that.
You are loved, worthy, and valuable simply just for being.
Crying. It's fine. I hope that hit you guys as much as it hit me over here.
Yeah, please, yes. Like, we are just out here living our lives, doing a thing, and we are cultivating that amazing, magnetic, safe energy where we are too busy being worthy. So welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
My
Happy
name is
Tuesday.
Garrett.
And I am Anna.
Yes.
Welcome to our podcast. We're so excited you guys are back or maybe listening for the first time ever.
Yes.
Welcome.
And today is Tuesday.
You made it. You've made it past that Monday hump, that Monday little scare where it's like, oh God, what's happened? How did I get here? But
I know
you've
you
done
have
it.
like the Monday
But you've done
scaries,
it.
you know.
That
it's
happens
like
for you guys.
when the
You
week first
did
starts
it.
off, it's like, will I be able to do what I need to do on Monday? But you did what you need to do. I feel like we always get it together on Monday. And then after Monday, you could take that sigh of relief and then get on with the rest of your week.
You can do it. I mean, really, that's all it is.
We can do hard things.
You can do hard things. Just, hey, get up and be like, we're going to do it. We're going to power through. And then be like, boom, that wasn't that hard. We actually did it.
Damn, we crushed that shit. Dropped the bomb on them. They ain't ready for us. And how we're ready to come after this week. Bro, like, they got to watch their necks because we're coming.
They don't even know who's coming. Surprise.
Exactly.
It's us.
Surprise. We're here.
Well, happy Tuesday. If you're not listening on a Tuesday, happy whatever day it is, whether it's Monday, whether it's Sunday, whatever. Hopefully you're
Thanksgiving, whatever day.
Yeah, truly. Christmas.
Whatever you come across.
Whatever is happening in your life right now, whatever gravitated you towards our podcast. We are just so excited and happy you're here. And we're really hoping you guys will be able to take away some really tangible, good things. One of the things we kind of got to talk about last week is giving you guys resources or things that you can really take home that are easy and simple to implement. So hopefully this is going to be a really exciting episode because I do think it's going to be a little more emotional.
Yeah.
Just talking about just some things that might be a little bit more intense or more heavy, but being able to put a little bit of a different spin on it, but then also giving you things of okay, when we're feeling those strong emotions, what do we do? How do we handle it? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you're gonna get some fun stuff today. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be so fun. And the theme for today's episode is facing your shadow. Embracing the shadow self.
So I want you to describe what that is.
I shall describe the shadow.
Because we talked about this last week. We have our shared notes where we kind of go what do we want to talk
just
about?
Put the bullet points down. Make sure we got everything.
And he wrote that down, and I said, Garrett, I have no idea what that is. So I looked at him and I said, can you tell me what that is? Because I'm going to be honest, I did not know a ton about this. So I was super excited to get to kind of learn more about it over the past week. And hopefully Garrett will be able to educate you guys like he did me.
Yes. So here I go. And this is a definition that I got offline. So this is, according to resources, what the definition of the shadow self is.
Love it.
Your shadow self is the part of you that you don't understand, referring to the true voice in you, the intuition, the angry, frustrated part of you, the part of you where you don't care about the world, only yourself, the devilish version of you that intentionally you suppress. So that can sound kind of
let that sink in for just a second. Sit in that uncomfortableness, because when he first told me that, I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about this. I was
do we really want to dive into that shadow realm? I don't know.
Garrett, maybe we should do that in a couple weeks. Maybe we should do that another time.
Maybe when I figure my shit out more,
I said, oh no, I don't know if I'm ready to talk about that one yet. You said, ooh, that's serious.
I don't know.
But it's such an interesting topic. You know what I mean? It's something I never really thought, I will say, or was intentional about thinking about anything under the sun like that. And I will say, getting to like think about it, like being like, oh God, who is that person for me? And then getting to like read, listen, like a couple of stuff that I've listened to over the week. I was like, this can actually be such a really empowering thing to understand about yourself. So I'm super excited because I hope you guys will like get what I've been able to get over like the last week, just learning about it. And then like obviously carrying that forward of like,
exactly,
that's never going anywhere. You know what I mean? But it can totally change your mindset when you are intentional about what those emotions are, identifying them, and breaking it down like even deeper, you know?
Yeah, and it is very important to really set those intentions to kind of like dive deep into that and figure out what the shadow is, because how I interpret the shadow self is that your shadow is essentially your subconscious. And, you know, for any of our conscious mindful friends who have watched before or are watching this now and you just are a conscious mindful person that is joining us for the first time, you may already be aware of the fact that the subconscious is the real driving force of our day-to-day actions. You could be in a situation where you're moving on autopilot because you've done a task so many times that even AI can't keep up with you, or you happen to run across a new unforeseen circumstance that causes your instinct to kick in. And this can be due to the fact that the same feelings that are caused by this new circumstance are the feelings that send signals to your body to pull these skill sets from the vault in a moment's notice in order to regulate that dis-ease that you're feeling to kind of put you back at that baseline. Whatever the case may be, we face a lot of these subconscious triggers on a daily basis so consistently that we truly might not be aware of how often that we come across them. And the prefix sub represents underneath or lower. And the way that I have kind of looked at that and related it to the shadow self is essentially it insinuates that your shadow is hidden. And because it's not in your direct line of sight, you know, you got to open the storm cellar doors, go in there and kind of like go around with the flashlight to discover it, or else it's going to stay hidden. To add on to that, our emotions are stored in our subconscious. And if our subconscious is what dictates a lot of our day-to-day actions, then so do our emotions. And this is something that could be neglected very greatly because since it's not directly in our face and our shadow self isn't just sitting up like, hey, I'm here in 4K with the LED light sign pointing down saying,
that would be
hey,
really
look
nice.
at me.
I'd
that
appreciate it if he would do that for me.
Very appreciated.
You said,
however, that's not
how it
the
works.
case. Exactly.
Weird.
Not how it works. And we will have a tendency to only focus on what is very apparently at the forefront of our minds. We also plain and simply might not have the key to unlock our subconscious mind. Also, we might be afraid of our subconscious. There is a lot there that we need to unravel that hasn't been looked at yet. You know, what are we going to find once we do take a look? Will we be able to sit with that and hold space for ourselves? And what is it going to do to our self-perception? Now, I totally understand that not every occurrence in our lives has this deep emotional impact. I know for me, a lot of the things that I encounter on a day-to-day basis are things that I truly wholeheartedly give zero fucks about. It's just like, this shit, I be watching motherfuckers do all types of shit, and I'm just like, it rolls off the shoulder.
Yeah, we're just going to move on.
Like, yeah, exactly. Move on. Next case.
Oh my gosh.
However, I have the awareness to realize that this attitude is derived from the emotional experiences that I've had in my life that have shifted me to this state of being. And while it could be a very uncomfortable experience and one that's very heavy, when you open those shutter doors and meet your shadow, it presents the perfect opportunity for you to meet yourself, to figure out why the things that make you tick do so. And kind of muster up the energy that's pent up within you and investigate all of these tough, very potentially shameful emotions and harness that energy in a way that can serve you towards having your preferred life experience.
Okay, that was beautiful. That was so good. Just, I was like, also such a great way to describe it and sound it little less scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, I still think it's one of those things that if you're initially listening, it does sound like a little daunting, but it's like all of those things get to be so empowering. You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of things that we get to control in our life. You know what I mean? But our emotions are, I mean, that is period in a story. That's what we get to choose every single day, every single minute, every single hour, right? So I think kind of everything you were just saying, right? Putting that intentionality behind it helps you better navigate that day to day. I mean, obviously it doesn't have to be a big emotional thing, but just understanding how we're functioning and how our subconscious plays into a role about how we think and feel about things, I think is a very cool thing. It's also very, no surprise, scientific.
Right.
So
we love science over here.
You know me.
Science, spirituality, the whole mix.
All of it
it's
together.
The perfect concoction.
So if you guys don't know, I am a chiropractor. In our office, we specialize in like pediatrics and pregnancy. But one of the really cool things that I've learned, like just through like this, like seminars and stuff I've taken, is for kids or for all adults, right? 80% of our programming, which programming means like our subconscious, like how we initially will like respond and think to things in our environment, actually starts when we, or finishes, like 80% of our programming is done by the time we're 7.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. I mean, 7 feels crazy because, I mean, if you think about when you're 7, I'm like, I was literally picking boogers and flicking it onto my friends. Right. I mean, I was foul, just a feral child.
Very
and now
feral.
I'm like,
I'm sure all of us were.
That is how, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I think when we think about other people, like 2 people can be in the same scenario, right? But the way that they've processed it can be totally different sometimes, right? And a lot of times it's just because of what we saw, what we experienced in the first 7 years of our lives. So if this is something where you've just heard all this and you're like, I'm scared, and you're like, I don't want to address it. No, a lot of it is just from our environment, right? Like how our parents raised us, the values that they gave us, even in those very early on days. And just to also remind yourself, give yourself some grace.
Exactly.
So if there's some of those emotions that you just don't love, that you know you gravitate towards, give yourself some grace. Do you know what I mean? Because those didn't come from nowhere. They came from what you've seen, what your role models were. And again, nobody's perfect, right? Even if you grew up in like a beautiful, amazing family, we all have like trauma or stress that we took, that we internalized and like gave us some sort of complex somewhere, right?
Yeah, somewhere.
And somewhere in our system. So
is this really serving me?
Yeah.
I don't know. So but it's something that we can move towards.
Yeah.
Sure.
So no, a lot of this came from our childhood. So whether you're in your 20s, whether in your 30s, 50s, whatever age you are, just remember like your mindset. It's never too late to be able to change your mindset. So like noticing, like we're going to talk about like a couple of emotions today that may have more of those negative connotations. But if you bring that intentionality of like, okay, I have these certain negative connotations or I gravitate towards these negative thoughts. Once you are aware of that, you can then catch when you do it and create like a pattern interrupt in your brain where obviously we're going to have negative thoughts. Those are never going to fully go away. But because we know what they are, when we feel it or experience or even see it, right, we'll be like, this is,
well, let me stop.
Like, there
let
it
me
is.
Have that awareness and be like, okay, like let's move towards, corrective behavior. If that is what is a part of your journey and the direction you decide that you want to move in. Right.
That. Yeah.
And kind of diving deeper into what that journey can look like. There obviously are a lot of ebbs and flows in our journeys. However, one of the main halting variables in people's journeys, as Anna so eloquently stated, are these negative emotions that we feel, whether it be ego, jealousy, resentment, just to name a few. We can feel a lot of shame potentially around these emotions because by societal standards, they're deemed very unacceptable to ever feel or express in any way, shape, or form. Now, from what I understand about shame and how it shows up in us in its various forms, is that shame tends to be this very unorthodox, cathartic, almost like just very warped way of us trying to essentially find solitude within our perceived shitty circumstances. Shame is derived from the concept of morality, and we can have a lot of things put on us, and we're indoctrinated with many ideals and beliefs as we grow up. And one of the main things that we're taught in life is that things are either good or bad. There is right and wrong. And when we do things that are good, we are rewarded. However, when we do things that are bad, we can be ridiculed, punished, or shamed for taking those actions that we took. And shame can be projected on us in an attempt to either set us straight or to teach us a lesson in some way, shape, or form. It can also come out in very passive ways where an individual might not necessarily wave their finger at you and be like, shame, and stone her. However, people...
Hopefully nobody's doing that this day and age.
Right.
But honestly, you never know. Somewhere in the world, that's definitely happening.
Definitely. And may God be with their souls, please.
God bless. Good luck.
But people might have a tendency to cringe or say, ooh, that couldn't be me, or good luck with that, or whatever like passive statements that people make because they would feel shame if they were in that situation. So then they kind of let that leak out. And then the person who partook in that action is like, okay, I see that I'm not really being received well in this circumstance. And I see that they would feel a way about this. So, subconsciously you carry that with you and you can adopt that ideology because that's what's being shown to you. And we are all receivers and transmitters of energy. And when you have those experiences, particularly at a young age, that does stick with you. If shame has been the primary form of corrective behavior that you've experienced throughout your lifetime, it's very understandable how you could shame yourself into correction because that's all you know. So you're just like, okay, like it's natural that I shame myself and hopefully that I'll tighten it up,
Yeah.
And if you throw those daggers at yourself, you could believe that you maybe, just maybe, might soften the blow that could come from outside sources. You also might believe that micromanaging your shortcomings and saying to yourself like, oh, I'm so fucking stupid for taking this action or feeling these feelings that I shouldn't feel, is going to somehow prevent you from doing it in the future. I hate to break it to you, but it's more than likely going to have the reverse effect.
Right.
When we give ourselves that mental and emotional beat down, we're putting ourselves in an anxious, fearful state. Revisiting a point that I mentioned on one of the previous episodes, when we move in a state of fear, we are cutting off access to our prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for processing complex emotional concepts, as well as things like problem solving and decision making. So we quite literally aren't thinking clearly. And
literally.
like quite literally, like it's just you're in a frazzled state when you get caught up in this, and then you can re-loop the story of you being this shameful individual and, just kind of stick to that as your life story. But the thing about stories is that they all have authors and edits can be made. Because all shame really is...
Oh my God, Garrett!
Oh, I know. I'm an analogy king. I love me some analogies.
I also just love analogies.
Yeah.
But that really hit. So, I hope that resonated with you guys because that honestly is so powerful. I
Yeah.
love that. Because really, like, I feel like we've all heard, like, oh, you're the author to your own story, which
Yeah.
is an awesome quote, but I love
Yeah.
the way you just described that there.
No.
That was awesome. Okay,
Thank
sorry.
you.
I just got excited. I was like, oh my God, that was so good.
But no, like, shame really is just a story that we tell ourselves because circumstances in life are inevitable and we are going to experience pain, whether that be physical pain, like you cutting a piece of glass across your arm, or you coming across some sort of financial or time burden, like you caught a flat on the highway and then now you're on the side of the road for Lord knows how long.
Stress.
And it's
You're
like,
frick.
oh, like, what am I about to do about this
Hey, do I do?
situation? Or even emotional pain, like maybe you went through a circumstance where somebody really close to you betrayed your trust and it's like, oh, that hurt. We can have those painful experiences, but the story of shame that we attach to them, as well as what that means about ourselves, is what causes the suffering. And the thing with shame is that although it can have these impacts on us that don't serve us, we also can harness an aspect of it that does serve us, in it the fact that we do draw lessons from that. Because as I mentioned earlier, like, a lot of the times shame is imposed on us when we do something that is quote unquote wrong, or if we are living our lives a certain way and we did something that is not desirable to us, and we have that subconscious reaction to shame ourselves, like we are trying to teach ourselves a lesson. So taking the aspect of teaching yourself how to do better for yourself in the future is something that is very valuable, but not attaching the story of shame to that is what is actually going to move you forward. And something that has really helped me in that experience has been whenever I have an experience where I really shit the bed and I'm just like, dang, like I really could have did better. Instead of, beating myself down and making myself feel worse about the situation, I remove myself from the circumstance. And like, let's say I ran over a nail driving and I've had this nail in my tire for some time now, and I keep losing air on my tire, and it's just like, dang, I got to get a new tire. Instead of saying, oh man, I haven't gotten this new tire yet. Like, I'm so forgetful. I'm so stupid. Like, why do I keep forgetting this? And like just having that narrative where I'm beating myself up, just objectively look at the circumstance and saying, there's a nail in the tire. Tire needs to be replaced.
Yeah. Period.
Like, period, end of story. And kind of remove that shameful narrative from it. And instead of shaming myself, I'm actually taking accountability.
Right.
And like being accountable for your own life entails of you looking at a circumstance, saying to yourself, okay, this is the thing. I accept that this is the reality. And how can I learn from this in order to have an experience that serves me and to where I can either avoid this in the future or just not have it show up in my life in a way to where I feel bad about it in the first place.
Yeah.
And to not take life happening to you as a personal attack.
I like that a lot. That's exactly where my brain was going. Of like, again, it's like, I think I talked about this, oh my gosh, forever ago in one of our first episodes, but it was like the concept, and this is from a book, so I'm not saying this, but it was like the concept of like, you're not special, right? Some of those like really inconvenient things. Like, I think everyone has probably had a nail in their tire, or everyone has had their flight canceled, or whatever that might be, right? But it's like, when you change your, like exactly what you said, right? Change that mindset, change that narrative, because it's not like you were, exactly what you're saying. It's not serving you anything by attaching that onto it, So if you can switch that of like saying like, okay, this might still suck. This still is not necessarily ideal, but rather than having that negative self-talk where you are like beating yourself up, like you said, or like truly being like, that's not nice, because that turns mindset wise, it turns you into the victim, right? And I think we've all known someone in our life where they're always the victim, right? They never take responsibility for whatever's going on. But again, we're all human. I mean, everyone has also done that at one point in their life where there's been a series of events where it's like, frick, you might just feel a little bit like hopeless or things like that. And then, right, you attach that narrative of that like shame onto it. And then that almost like paralyzes you. It keeps you from being able to take action or taking that next step. Because if you're the victim, someone, right, in what we see, someone should help victims, right? But the reality is, unfortunately, with as being an adult, that is just not what happens.
Yeah.
So
unfortunately, we got to be our own superhero.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Prince Charming isn't coming to rescue us.
Yeah.
We can't just put our hair down and have him climb up. Like, no, we got to escape that castle. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like, ooh, no, you got to jump out that window and take that leap of faith in life.
Which I love. So, like, love the way you described that. One of the emotions I wanted to talk about, sorry, I don't have a better segue, so I'm going to segue by telling you I'm segueing way, which is not a word. By telling you I'm going to segue.
It's a word now. We're segueing way.
We're segueing way. Let's edit that out. I'm just kidding. But one of the ones I wanted to talk about that I think can be so prevalent for women, I do think it's prevalent in men, but I do think women can feel this a little bit more in general, or more commonly, is I think jealousy. And I think everyone has been jealous at one point of their life, but it's always like, oh, that ugly green giant. No one likes the jealous person, or everyone's like, well, that person is annoying, whatever is going on there. But I think that's also such a normal feeling. And I think especially in your 20-somethings, we see social media, we see all like these quote unquote perfect lives where people are traveling, doing this and that. And you might not be at a place where you're doing all the things that you want to be doing, or the things that you might have thought you would be doing at the age that you are now. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's so easy to see those people on social media, or even just people in real life, whether it's people you work with that are like getting to do like this or that. And you're just like, I'm just not in a place where I'm able to do stuff like that, you know? And that can be like create like a lot of that negative self-talk, kind of like what you were talking about of like, we'll attach that, and it's like, will make us feel some type of way of like, well, now like, I don't want to hang out with them because it's like, it just makes me feel bad that I'm not where they are. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think typically when we feel jealous, it presents as like, not aversions, but like us being more timid or not wanting to necessarily like talk with other people, and being like, oh, well, if I talk with them, like they're going to talk about how great their life is and how awesome this or that is. And it's like, I don't want to be around that person, you know, because it's like, you just might create that sense of jealousy, but that's also so isolating, right? Like for ourselves, like we want to, and again, so much easier said than done sometimes, but we want to celebrate other people's wins. We want to celebrate other people's victories, even if that's not exactly where you are. And again, it is okay to be like a little bit envious in a sense of like, it's okay to want something. We are human. Like that's who we are by nature. We have desires, we have wants and things that we want to get out of it. But I think what has helped me the most, like be less jealous of like other women, whether it's like their looks or their clothes or different things like that. Cause like, obviously like I'm in my 20s and I feel like I'm like, you know, like we have certain days where I'm like, I'm doing great. I am crushing it.
Right.
And then sometimes I'll see other people and then I'm like,
literally
I'm
an hour later.
Terrible. Yeah.
Crash
right.
out.
It's a little bit of that roller coaster, right? So I can like whatever's going on, what has helped me the most, and like this is like a tangible things that you guys can take home, is goal setting. So don't tune out. I know some people do not like goals. Just hear me out. Just take a little journey with me. We're gonna have fun.
Let's go on a trip.
So
we're in the car.
So
we're with you.
So don't think about goals as like things that you've maybe done in the past that like maybe you set a goal and you just haven't reached it. And then sometimes we build shame around that, or we really beat ourselves up because we're like, I did not reach that goal. You know, by the time I'm 28, I thought I would be married and have a house and drive a Benz or whatever. That's crazy if you're doing that at 28.
A mansion.
Yeah, right.
Have
Which
my
love that.
multi-million-dollar husband.
Yeah, which I love that if you're doing that, but don't talk to me. I'm just kidding. But so just be like, when you're setting goals, we actually had like a life coach come into our office, and she talked to us a lot about intentional goal setting. And she was, as you can imagine, very intentional about using that word, because she says what she saw all the time when she's working with a lot of her clients is that clients will set really awesome goals, really great goals. But she's like, but you're almost doing too much all at once. You know what I mean? And then by the end of the year or by the end of the month, whenever your timeline is, if you don't reach that goal, then you're so hard on yourself when you don't reach that goal. And then it makes you either not want to do it anymore or not want to set goals anymore. But goals, like, that is really what's going to keep us on like the path. That's going to drive us moving forward. If like we have an idea of like where we want to go, you know what I mean? And goals can be, it doesn't have to be like a big life-changing thing of like going back into school, getting a degree or whatever. It can be just like, I want to save up to buy a king mattress, or I really want to save up to like get my first dog, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It can be literally anything under the sun, right? So I
want to stock the fridge up this afternoon.
Yeah. It can be, literally something that short term. You know what I mean? Like, so for me, what I want you guys to do, and this is the one thing that we actually did in our office, and I truly felt different after I did it, is I want you to, we used Post-its. You could probably grab whatever you want, but just have like a little scrap piece of paper, and for just 3 to 5 minutes, set a timer, whatever you want that time to be. Like for the next 5 minutes, I want you to just write down all of your goals. Everything.
Every single one you've truly ever had in your life.
And that feels, and again, that might feel crazy. And again, there might be certain things where it's like, I want to buy a house. I don't anticipate you're doing that tomorrow, which if you are, amazing. I love that for you.
Period.
Right. You go.
You are, baby, balling out.
Yeah. But so like whatever those goals are, whether it's like, okay, I want to buy a house. I want to like go back into school and get this, or I want to do that. I want to go here on this trip. Whatever your goals are, write them all down. Purge them all. Because again, or it can be like, I just need to deep clean my house this weekend. It can be the really simple things all the way to like the really cool, extravagant, fun, long-term goals that you have. So essentially, purge all of those goals out and then just kind of look at them. Just being like, okay, I want to do all these things. I also can do all these things, but let's now that we've purged it, now that it's not jumbled in our head, let's now then be intentional of like, what is my timeline? And I want you to then order your goals of first thing you want to do, something that's short term, something you know that you can do within the week, within the month, whatever kind of your goals end up looking like, again, within the day, whatever it is. Like, put them in order, number them 1 to 10, 1 to 15, whatever your goals end up kind of falling out to be. And then giving yourself a timeline, like a realistic timeline of like when you think those would be able to happen. Do you know what I mean? And so what she told us to do is then, okay, let's say you've got 15 goals. Only focus on your first 5. Just look at those. Because I will say, like, for me, I'm a big list person just because I definitely have like ADHD tendencies where like I've got 10 tabs open and then I can't even focus on one of them. You know what I mean? So when you are able to purge that list, put them all down, it helps take them out of your head. So it's less of like that stressor, or maybe less of a pain point where you're maybe constantly thinking about it. It's your Roman Empire where you're always coming back to it, whatever that is.
We can't let it fall.
Yeah. But once you've been able to kind of purge those, whether it's the long-term goals, whether it's the big ones, right? Focus on your first 5, the ones that you can do. You know what I mean? And truly, I will say doing that exercise physically made me feel different. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't. Yeah, it's
30
one of those
pounds
things,
lighter.
Truly,
I'm slim thick.
Yeah, I said,
Snatched.
wow, I already look better because I'm less stressed.
Right.
But really,
Skin
though,
is going.
like that may
Lip gloss
sound
is popping.
Yeah, right. It may sound kind of silly in a sense, but honest to God, I was like, wow, like that. It made me feel better because I will say I make yearly goals like at the end of the new year. So if you make yearly goals, I think that's still a great practice. But what I notice is like with my yearly goals, I get a little overambitious. I'm a little bit excited because I think when you look, if your timeline is a year, it feels like you can accomplish everything in a year, because it feels like a long time, at least for me. And this is my mindset. You guys might not feel this way. You might be more realistic than I am, which if you are, I'm happy for you,
Oh my
because I'm a
goodness.
little delusional sometimes. But sometimes I've noticed, like, if what I've done in the past is I've set goals for my year, and then I've got this big laundry list of goals. And then I've noticed at the end of the year, if I didn't do everything, I kind of beat myself up a little bit. And I'm never like, I was still happy I made the goals. It still gave me, I was like, okay, the goals I didn't accomplish, I'll carry over. But what helped me the most now that I'll do when I make my yearly goals is I'm going to put a timeline on it. Like, what are the things realistically that I think I'm going to actually be able to accomplish within the year? But it's okay to put some goals maybe in a 3-year timeline. That way, they're still on your radar. They're still there, but they're not disappearing. You know what I mean? Because then sometimes there's goals that you'll get done quicker, faster than you thought, which is awesome, super exciting. But then if you don't accomplish it within the year, you're not going to like really beat yourself up or be stressed about it. And I will say, like, kind of bringing it back into jealousy, like, one of the things that I have felt is kind of what I talked about right at the beginning is it's easy to look at what someone else has and want it or feel like that's what you want. That's like, okay, like, that's a normal thing to have those emotions. But I think if you can, again, if that becomes and creates one of those goals where it's really important to you that, like, long term, this is where you are, when you write that list down and you give yourself that timeline, truly for me, that actually has been able to help with some of those, like, some of my like jealous tendencies in a sense, because I'm so fortunate. I love my job, but I also work with, I mean, everybody. I work with families. I work with kids. Like, I work with very established and like very people that are really successful in their career. And sometimes it's easy to look at those people and like these women walk in with their like Louis Vuitton, Chanel bags. And I'm like, how do I get that? You know what I mean?
Can I have Louis,
Yeah,
please?
right.
Put me
So
on.
sometimes it's easy to look at what someone else has and be jealous. But then when you are able to like create that timeline, create those like long-term goals, it makes it feel attainable where you're like, I know what I'm working towards. Like, and it gives you like a purpose and a drive to be like, okay, I might not be there yet, but I'm going to get there. You know what I mean? And I know for me that has helped like a ton, but it also helps me then, instead of seeing maybe that person that maybe has what I want or has what I'm working towards, I'm not jealous of that person. I get to like then celebrate and be happy for them, because it's easy to look at that person and be like, oh my God, their life is so good. But they've also done a lot of hard work to get there. It's not like they just woke up and got to have all that stuff, right? We don't know everybody's story. So being able to like appreciate being like, you know what? They have all these really cool, these really nice things that are awesome, but I'm happy that they have those things, because if we can have more of that positive energy, like you were saying, like energy that transfers, if we can create positive energy of like, I'm actually really happy for that person, I want to celebrate their wins and their successes, that brings the energy back to you. Do you know what I mean? That creates more opportunity in your life where that energy comes full circle. You know what I mean? Where if we create that negative connotation over and over again, we're not going to get the things that we want or the goals that we are driving to get ourselves to. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, that has really helped me change my mindset. And then that's always something you can always go back to, right? When you have that physical list, when you have what you're working towards, and you notice if you're falling into those patterns of like that negative self-talk, whatever it is, that jealousy, that shame, then you can be like, you know what? Let me look at my goals. Let me look at what I'm working towards. But it also gives you the chance to then look at the stuff you've already done, right? And then be like, I did that. Like, that is really cool. And celebrate the wins that you get, because that creates more of that pattern interrupt in your brain. You know what I mean? So sorry, I went on a longer tangent than I expected.
No, you're totally
but hopefully
fine.
that's something that like you guys
Yeah.
can really actually take with you and like gives you something that you can physically do to like help, you know?
Yeah. And just like you made a really good point about having gratitude. It is so important because gratitude is attached to that abundance mindset. You know,
Yes.
when we feel like we are abundant beings and that we can manifest anything that we desire and that everything is working in our favor, life is going to work out for us, and you realize that there is opportunities for everyone. That abundance mindset doesn't just apply to you, but it applies to the world. And you realize that there is so much in the world, and we are just such these vast, creative, expansive beings that have made so much. I mean, if you look at like all the things that mankind has accomplished and like what society has looked like and just everything that people have built, as human beings, we're constantly growing and evolving, and just seeing how we can take that next step and put that next foot forward. And we all have that commonality within us. So it's like when you see somebody else winning, yeah, like you can cheer for them and have that energy come back to you, because it is in our nature to grow, expand. And if you just keep that mentality prevalent and realize that you can do whatever you want, then you can. But it really is just about how you perceive things. I don't know, like shifting to that mindset might not be the easiest, especially when you maybe have been infused with that lack mindset. And, things like jealousy can come up because you feel like circumstances just weren't in your favor, and that somebody might have gotten lucky, or they just were dealt a better hand than you. And this is just very much due to our conditioning. Like a lot of things are set up for us to feel that way. And that really is just your ego protecting you. That is the kind of the main function of the ego, is to preserve our sense of self, because our thoughts, the active practice of thinking and forming an identity, is that ego. And when we have an identity, we really are attached to that. We want to walk as that person and, just kind of like let people know who we are. And then whatever life we've cultivated for ourselves, whether it be one that may stress us out or one that brings us a lot of joy and fulfillment, like we still kind of have that ego attachment to everything that we've built. So we are going to act on that. And ego can be perceived as this wretched, terrible thing in society. Like every conversation that I hear about ego, like people are talking about how your ego gets in your way and you shouldn't let your ego dictate a lot of your decision makings. And, like ego is responsible for jealousy and envy and things of that nature. And all of that is true. Ego is attached to all of that. But ego also is what allows you to have confidence. It is what allows you to have that abundance mindset, and for you to come from difficult situations. Because just like how you can identify with the things in life that might not be the most serving to you and those perceived negative emotions, you can also identify as somebody who takes things in stride, who is constantly learning, who wants to just be more comfortable with themselves and embody just this magnetic essence that attracts all of the things in life. And being able to just differentiate what isn't serving for you and what is serving for you is kind of how I decipher when I should apply my ego in situations and when to turn your ego off, because your ego can get in the way of you learning and growing as a person and moving towards your life's purpose, because you're so attached to these things that you are comfortable with. And walking into the unknown is very scary because we don't see it. We see the life that we've already built. We see the things that have been presented to us, and we know it's possible over here. However, stepping over here, it can be terrifying not knowing what it looks like. But when you adopt the identity of someone who has faith and who can take chances and take leaps of faith, you can really just turn off that ego attachment whenever you adopt practices that allow you to come to a point of stillness and to where like you can detach And when you detach, you can listen to that intuition and just trust that you need to move in the direction that you need to move towards. And your ego can also be turned on in situations where you need to be protected in life because, we hear lots of things about protect your energy, know your worth, and stand your ground. In order for you to do those things, your ego has to be in play to let you know, like, okay, like, I'm not going to take nobody's shit. Like, you're not just going to give me whatever and I'm just going to take whatever. And knowing your worth is very pivotal in situations. So you're going to need your ego in order to be able to stand up for yourself and just have that confidence, that security, and ultimately embody the things that you need to embody once you discover your power in life.
I love that because I do feel like ego, when you first hear it, it's almost like a ooh, like
yeah, it's like ooh, let me
you said,
you
know what I mean? Like it's almost like immediately when you hear like some of those words, you're kind of like, ooh, I don't want to have. We have all known that person where it's like, oh my god, their ego is taking up the size of this room. Like they need to like relax. You know what I mean?
Where it's like gotta hose them down.
Yeah, where it's that person that like almost like takes up all the energy and things like that, and you're like, that is not the person I want to be around, right? But it is. But we've also met that same person, or not same person. We've also met a person that's also been like, oh my gosh, like you can also feel when you talk to them, they're so confident, So it's almost like towing the line between like where is it your ego is driving you, like you said, versus like, or is it just my confidence? Like I know my value, I know where I'm going to stand up for myself, and I know that's like the boundaries. Like this is my hard line. We're not crossing that. You know what I mean? And it's like, but I think it's all about knowing like where is it coming from? You know what I mean? Because sometimes in the moment you might feel like, no, I'm just being confident. I'm standing up for myself. Where if we kind of take that moment to pause and reflect, it's like, maybe that actually was coming from a place where it was actually more about like my ego, or I was like embarrassed and I didn't want to like feel this way. So I really like stood my ground, where it's like, did I really need to stand my ground in that certain scenario? Right. So it is kind of like it's a line.
It's a seesaw. It's a juggling act for sure.
Yeah. So it's just like everything we've talked about, right? Just being so intentional. And that way, when you can understand of like, oh, okay, this is coming from my ego, because maybe I'm insecure about this, or maybe I'm lashing out because I'm feeling like lonely, or I'm feeling upset about that. It's like knowing like what is the driving emotion of what's causing you to take that next step. And then when you can understand where it's coming from, that like exactly like you said, that helps you navigate and kind of take those like future steps. Because I think one of the big things that can drive us, especially in our 20 somethings, is that loneliness, right? Because loneliness that's a very powerful emotion that I think everybody at some point has felt. You know what I mean? And that's one of those things that I don't think that's one that a lot of people like to like admit. I think sometimes we can create a lot of shame around being lonely. And I know I have felt that when a couple times in my life, like, so I grew up in Texas, but I went to college in North Carolina. So obviously I'm moving states. When I moved to North Carolina, I did not know a single person, right? So when I moved, like, I definitely had that mental breakdown of like, oh my God, what the frick did I just do, right? And I'm sure you could have had a similar experience, right? Where it's like you move states, you're somewhere totally new, you don't have your support system, you're not with like your high school, college friends, your network, or your family, whoever your people are, chosen, or your biological family, right?
Yeah, it's just like you picked yourself up and plopped yourself somewhere just completely foreign.
Right.
And there is rebuilding that can be done, because since those people aren't in your immediate environment, it's just like, okay, like I want that sense of community. And
right,
it's very hard.
It is hard. I mean, and I know a lot of people end up moving like for jobs or careers or just life in general. So it's like, and even if you're not moving, even if you're still feeling that emotion, especially when you are changing stages in life, because I think even if you live in the same hometown you has forever, as we grow up, a lot of people go in different directions. So a lot of people that maybe you were really close with once, maybe you just don't talk as much, or now you're both busy. Maybe they've got a family, and so you're not like hanging out for Taco Tuesday every week,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? I think sometimes we've all been like, gosh, I'm lonely, you know what I mean? And that can be like a really crappy feeling of like, oh, that's kind of sad. And again, it's easy to kind of like then frame it of like, oh, well, I'm lonely, like I'm sad, I'm all by myself. Or it's like, okay, we can say, you know what? I don't have my network of people. I'm still like, but that's where it's such a good opportunity to like, again, go back into like your foundation, like who you are, like what's driving you, like ground you of like what made you come here. You know what I mean? Like what is really important to you and what got you here. And if you can ground yourself of like, okay, I know everything I've done, like it's led me to this point, to this phase. Now it's like, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe you didn't move for your career. Maybe you're in your hometown and you're like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? It's like, what the heck is like my next step? What is the next phase for me? Where am I supposed to go? Again, it's okay. Like if you don't have that figured out in your 20s, 30s, even 40s, like, I mean, the amount of people that I hear that like go back to school or restart, like, and totally change their career paths because they're like, where I was just wasn't serving me anymore. Like, know that there are people that are older than us that are having the same crisis and the same feeling. And I think in your 20s, it can just feel so much more intense because I think sometimes we're feeling it for the first time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
in our 20s, we experience that great scattering where it's like we're so used to everyone in our immediate environment kind of like in the same stage in life as us. We all are in school together, so we're all doing the same things and kind of are being guided in one general direction where it's like, okay, we know where we're going. We're moving up to graduation and eventually maybe figuring out what we want to do career-wise. And then once you're out of school, it's just like, oh shit, everybody just goes this direction. One person might have a very quick rocket rise and success to their career, while somebody else might be not where they thought they would have been at that point in time. And so then you can play the comparison game where it's just like, well, dang, like they're moving so much faster than me. And then it can cause like a lot of turmoil.
Yeah. I would say one of the things, I can't remember, I know this is a really common saying, so I don't know who said it, but one of actually my friends, they're like, comparison is like the thief of joy. You know what I mean? Like if you are constantly comparing yourself to other people, that is going to take so much joy away from you. Do you know what I mean? Because like your life is not their life. They've had different experiences, different things. So it's like you're trying, like, I think some people can do this in relationships too. If like you look at your relationship and then you look at someone else and it's like, oh my God, they look madly in love. They're so sweet to each other. And it's like, you cannot compare your relationship to those two people because they're totally separate people. Like, let's say they weren't together and you met that person. Would you even like that person? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, just take that moment of like, don't compare, which is, again, so much easier said than done. So take that with a grain of salt. But again, pay attention, be intentional of like noticing if you are comparing, because that's going to be the most isolating. That's going to be the most lonely feeling that you can get of discouraging yourself of like, I'm going to compare myself to this person. We're not the same. Now I'm sad. Like,
exactly.
Now I feel like I've just...
You're just setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
At that
So
point.
It's just not worthwhile to do. You know what I mean? So one thing that I always like, we talk about in our office, we talk about this in kind of a different sort of like setting, but one of the big things we talk about is emotional stress, how that actually impacts like our physical well-being, which like we won't dive into. But one of the things we tell people like ways to cope is like, you need to find activities that really bring you joy. You know what I mean? Like find like what, and for everyone, it's hard because it's nuanced. For everyone, it can be totally different. For some people, it might be working out. Like you might love working out and that's like your happy place. That's where you blow off steam. That's where you blow off stress. For some people, if I'm like, you should move your body, they'll be like, why would you tell me to do something so terrible? Like, I met people that like working out. It's like the worst thing you could ask me to do.
Yeah.
So again,
Just like, it's actually disrespectful.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
spit in my face.
yeah, truly.
Cut it out.
I can't remember who I was talking to, but one of the patients in our office, I was like, well, what kind of like activity, what kind of movement do you enjoy? And she was like, nothing. I was like, okay, let's pivot.
Like, I like reaching
Yeah.
for the remote and turning on Stranger Things.
I said, we will pivot now. Okay. So again, if exercise is not for you, don't stress, don't worry. But again, there's also so many types of exercise. So whether if you don't like strength training or like high intensity workouts, like try something that's more low impact, something that's like more slow moving, like yoga, Pilates. But again, if that really makes you hate me, don't do that. It's okay. One of the things, like, hey, for everyone, it's different. Some people are more creative. Like some people might really enjoy like painting. Some people might really enjoy like just drawing little like doodles. And I'll say, if you told me you wanted to paint, I would be like, why? Just because that's just not one of the things that brings me joy. You know, like for me, it is working out. It's getting outside.
I could draw
moving.
a little doodle bob.
Yeah. Like stick figures. That is really what I'm capable of. But one of the things like my fiance loves doing, he is far more creative than I am. Like he enjoys getting to do like creative things. Like he's like, we should do like a little just like drawing contest. He's like, let's both draw boats. And I was like, what? I said, that sounds terrible. I said,
no, y'all do that TikTok trend where you draw your part.
That I'm not even gonna hurt my feelings by doing that. Right? That's so funny. I saw that today and I was like, oh my God, we could never.
It's like, why do we do this to ourselves?
And again, it's always like different strokes for different folks. Like you're gonna find something that really brings you joy, because most of those things, like if you find something that you enjoy doing and you find a place where you can do that, or a class or something that you can do and with other people, that's how you're going to find your people. That's how you're going to kind of get to put yourself out there a little bit more. And it's going to make it feel less uncomfortable, because if you're doing something that you enjoy, you're then going to put yourself in an environment with people that are like you, where you've got a commonality, something that baseline kind of bonds you, because you both get to enjoy something. You know what I mean? And even though that might not be like the grounds for your whole friendship, right? There might be people that enjoy that and you're like, we're just not each other's person. And that's totally normal. But if you can put yourself in those environments, that's going to create a better space for you to like bond with more people, to get yourself out there in a like less scary and a less like uncomfortable sense. Do you know what I mean? And again, is that where you might meet your best friend? Maybe not, but sometimes maybe you'll meet someone and they've got a friend group and they invite you out with like some of their friends and they're like, hey, like I think you would enjoy, like we're going to all go out for dinner. You should come. And again, maybe you might not be like the closest with the initial person that you met, but that's like your opportunity then to say like, oh, I get to now meet this new set of people, and like I'm going with this or I know this person, but now I get to like meet their friends, and now we get to like socialize and bond. And you know, like that gives you the opportunity to like then be like, oh, this is really my kind of person. You know what I mean? Like we've got similar like backgrounds, we've got similar values, you know? So it just kind of gives you like that segue where it has that like chain, like snowball effect where it gets to build on itself. You know what I mean? And again, like we're all going to have moments of like loneliness. Do you know what I mean? But if we can ground ourselves in our values of like, okay, why are we here? How did I get here? Like, what is driving me? Is that still serving me? Because it also gives you like a check of like, are you in the place that you really want to be? You know, like, and again, the answer might be no. And that can give you a good opportunity to be like, okay, maybe I need to like switch it. Maybe I need to change something up. So it just gives you the chance to have that, like, again, what we've talked about this whole time, that self-reflection, right? That intentionality of like, you're doing steps that are driving you towards where you want to go, what you need to do to like get that fulfillment. You know what I mean? With your system and with your life, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I also want to comment on about going out and having new experiences, whether it be just like going out to an event where there's this like event in Charlotte. It's called the Neon Brush Experience, where you
Cute.
it's basically like glow in the dark paint, and like they
that I
have
would
like
do.
LED lights.
That I would do.
It's so fun. But like having experiences like that, or maybe going indoor skydiving or axe throwing.
Yeah.
I'm naming things that I want to do. So
Yeah.
this is like from
So these are
personal
my
experience.
goals,
Right,
actually.
these are
This is
my
what I'm
goals.
working
Right.
towards.
But just like anything that can get you out the house, get you moving. To Anna's point, just anything that is of interest to you. Once you do things that can distract you from making yourself miserable and causing yourself that pain or that torture, is that it gives you the realization that you have more autonomy in your life than you realize. Because sometimes when we get caught up in those cycles of feeling like things just aren't working out for us and we're never going to get to where we need to be, we feel like we don't have control. But getting out and doing those things just reminds you that you have the ability to get up and make whatever decision that you see fit in order to bring yourself happiness, to bring yourself fulfillment. And you realize, oh, I have the power. That power is within me, and I am the external source that, or I am the abundant source that brings all of the external factors to me in my life. So if you just access that internal power, get up and go after things, then you can get what you want. And also, a point about loneliness too that has really been beneficial for me in my life and the way that I've harnessed it is that once you take time to be by yourself, it really gives you a lot more clarity on who you are as a person. Because sometimes when we don't have those moments to be by ourselves and really self-reflect, we never ask ourselves the questions that are necessary in order to come to that point of self-discovery. And we can just be so distracted by all of the chatter in the world that we don't listen to our own voice and kind of figure out, okay, like, what do I like? What type of people do I like to be around? What experiences do I like to have? So once that loneliness is incited in you, you can figure those things out and try new things and just be like, oh, okay, like this is the type of life experience that I have or that I like having. So it can definitely give you that sense of clarity. And overall, with everything that we've mentioned today, it's really important to be mindful of the fact that you, going back to my earlier point about having the power, you have the power to take everything that you feel and harness it in a way that is serving for you. Every emotion is a mirror, and we are meant to examine those emotions in order to get closer to ourselves. So embrace everything that you feel because it is what makes you you. And it is that internal GPS that is guiding you to where you need to be in life. So instead of looking at all of these feelings as something to run away from, I really do encourage you all to move towards them because, being able to look at yourself and radically live your life freely and abundantly is choosing to live a life where vulnerability and truth is at the forefront. And that is the key to opening the portal that you can access your freedom in. So with that, I want to come to a close.
Yay. Okay. Take homes, guys.
Yeah.
Take 5 minutes. Write your goals down. Literally set a timer, purge them. If you don't need all 5 minutes, fine. But literally write them all down, put them in order, and give them timelines. That's going to really take so much of a burden and like a mental load off you. Like truly, like I know, like for me, like when I was so fortunate, like I was able to like purchase my home about a year and a half ago now. Ooh, that feels crazy. But
some time.
But it's like but it was definitely like, it's one of those things where there was a lot of things about the house I wanted to change. I wanted to update. So then I have this laundry list of everything I wanted to do. And I remember after the first year, I was so upset that I didn't do everything that was on my list. So truly, okay, write everything down. Right. That's going to take a lot of like the stress, the burden off you of like not feeling like you're accomplishing everything that you need and want to do, order it, give yourself a timeline. It's going to help so much. And then also just like do things that are fun. Like just like Garrett said, like whether it's like, again, the workout class, whether it's just doing axe throwing, just something fun that's interactive, like just get like that's going to bring you joy. That's going to like create more of that like strength in yourself, kind of everything that you said. Because when you have that good energy with you and that abundance, that's going to come back to you and you're going to attract the people that you enjoy, that are your like-minded people. And, you know, that's how you get that full circle moment. So do all those things. You're going to do great.
And also be able to harness the energy of accountability instead of those self-damaging narratives.
Important.
As well as just knowing when to turn that ego on and when to turn it off.
Yeah.
Which will be a journey, but you'll figure it out. I have faith in you.
You will. I mean, it's an ongoing thing. It's one of those things, whenever we talk about this, it's all like a process. There's never a destination where we've arrived. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's like just enjoy the process, you know?
Yes. Enjoy the process.
Love it.
So if you love this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you are listening to this. And we appreciate you all so much.
We love you.
Having you all here is such a joy. It is self-fulfilling. And thank you for coming and listening to us. We really appreciate you.
Means so much. Love ya.
Love you.
Bye.
Take care.